Okay, so have you ever really stopped to think about it? How does the money you spend on your morning coffee somehow find its way back into your paycheck? It feels complicated, but today we're going to map out that exact journey. We'll be using this really cool and honestly pretty simple tool called the circular flow of income model to see how money, goods, and services are all tangled up in one giant continuous loop. I mean, it just feels like a huge, tangled mess, right? You earn money, you spend it, businesses are over here making stuff, the government's collecting taxes. It just seems totally chaotic. But what if I told you there's a surprisingly simple, kind of elegant way to see how all those pieces actually fit together? Well, turns out there is. And that's where the circular flow model comes in. It's basically our guide, our map for the money. It takes all that chaos we were just talking about and boils it down into a simple diagram. This lets us follow the path of a single dollar and see really clearly how every single part of the system is connected to everything else. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with where this whole idea even came from. It's a bit of a surprise. Then we'll draw out the basic two-way flow. After that, we'll get into something called the Great Economic Bathtub. Trust me, it makes sense. We'll see how we measure all this, and then we'll ask the big question. What is this map missing? All right, first up, the economy's heartbeat. So where did this powerful idea even come from? Well, it's actually older than you might think. And the inspiration for it? It came from right inside the human body. Yeah, way back in the 18th century, a French economist named Francois Quesnay had this brilliant insight. He looked at the economy and saw that the flow of money and goods was a lot like the circulation of blood through the body, a constant, life-sustaining loop. It was a really powerful metaphor. And honestly, it's still at the very heart of how we think about macroeconomics today. Okay, let's build this thing from the ground up. We'll start with the most basic version of the map, which really just has two main characters, you and me, and the businesses we buy things from. So take a look at this simple loop. On one side, you've got households. That's us, right? We're the consumers. But we're more than that. We also provide the essential ingredients for the economy to work: our labor, our skills, the land we might own. And then on the other side, you've got firms. They're the producers. They take all those ingredients, what economists call the factors of production, and they use them to create the goods and services we all want to buy. And this whole exchange happens in two key places: the factor market, where we sell our labor and resources, and the product market, where we spend our money on their stuff. Now you'll see there are actually two loops here, moving in opposite directions. The outer loop shows the flow of real things: our labor going to firms, and the actual goods and services they make coming back to us. The inner loop, that's the money flow. Firms pay us wages and rent for our resources, and then we turn around and use that exact money to buy their products. So you see, every real flow has a matching money flow going the other way. They're like two sides of the same coin, just constantly spinning. But of course, the real world is a little messier than that, right? The economy isn't a perfectly closed system. Money leaks out of this main loop and new money gets injected in. To really get our heads around this, we need to add a bit more complexity to our map. And the best way to do that is to start thinking of the economy as a great big bathtub. So first, let's talk about the drain. In our economic bathtub, the drains are leakages. You can also think of them as withdrawals. Basically, it's any money that we earn, but that we don't immediately spend back into that main loop we just talked about. For a moment, at least, it's money going down the drain. And, the opposite of a leakage? That's an injection. This is spending that doesn't come directly from us, from households. You can think of this as turning on the faucet, pouring more money into that main flow between households and firms. All right, so here are the three main pairs of leakages and their matching injections. First, when we put money into savings, that's a leakage. It leaves the main flow and goes to the banks. But that money gets injected back in when businesses borrow it for investment. See how that works? Second, taxes are a leakage that goes to the government. That money gets injected back into the economy as government spending. And finally, when we buy imports, our money leaks out to other countries. It comes back as an injection when those countries buy our exports. So let's put it all together. The water level in our bathtub represents our total national income. The faucet, that's our injections: investment, government spending, and exports makes the water level rise. That means the economy is growing. The drain, our leakages: savings, taxes, and imports makes the water level fall, which can make the economy shrink. And the sweet spot, What economists call equilibrium is when the water coming in from the faucet is perfectly balanced by the water going out the drain. Okay, so this whole bathtub model gives us a fantastic picture of how the economy works to stay in balance. But it does more than just that. By tracking all the water flowing through the tub, by tracking all that spending, we can actually measure the total size of the entire economy. And that leads us directly to a number you hear about constantly: gross domestic product, or GDP. And hey, this famous formula for GDP should look pretty familiar now. It's basically just our model turned into a math equation. It measures the economy by adding up all the different types of spending. C is for consumption by us, the households. I is for investment by firms. G is for government spending. And that last bit, X minus M, is just exports minus imports or net exports. It's literally just a count of all the money flowing through that system we just finished mapping out. Okay, so we've built this neat, tidy, logical map of the economy. It seems to account for everything, doesn't it? But what if the most important things are actually in the blank spaces around the map? Let's ask a really critical question here. This model is pretty much the foundation of modern economics. So what happens if it's missing something fundamental? What if our map is leaving out the most important territory altogether? You see, the standard model presents the economy like it's some kind of perpetual motion machine, just floating in a void, completely self-contained. But ecological economists look at that and say, that's impossible. The economy isn't floating in space. It's embedded within our planet's ecosystem. It has to constantly pull in resources and energy from nature to run, and it's constantly spitting out waste and pollution on the other end. It's not really a circle at all. It's more like a one-way street that begins with nature's resources and ends with nature's sinks. And the standard model, it just completely ignores that. The economist Herman Daly really put it best with this powerful analogy. He said that studying economics using the circular flow without considering this throughput from nature, well, it's like trying to study the human body without ever mentioning the digestive tract. You're basically pretending the system can run forever on nothing. And it's not just nature that's missing. There's another huge blank space on our map. Feminist economists point to what's called the care economy. This is all the unpaid labor, raising children, cooking meals, cleaning homes, caring for elderly relatives, that actually creates and sustains the workforce that our formal economy absolutely depends on. I mean, think about it. If all that work just stopped tomorrow, the entire circular flow we've been talking about would grind to a halt. But because it's unpaid, it's completely invisible to the model. It doesn't show up anywhere in GDP. So this all leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? The circular flow model is the fundamental map we use to guide economic policy around the world. But if that map completely leaves out the natural world that sustains us, and it leaves out the foundational care work that holds our society together, well, it kind of forces you to ask, are we really sure we know where we're going?